Okay, so today's video is going to be on combining like terms. We're going to be taking some notes, and then after that, you're going to be doing some practice and then submitting that. So let's start with, first of all, they say combine like terms. Well, what is a term? A term is actually a number or a variable, or numbers and variables multiplied together. So let's show some examples of what I mean by that. So any number. 15 is a term. It's a number all by itself. 4 is a term. Again, it's just a number all by itself. -2 or positive 3/7. Those are all terms. They're just single numbers all by themselves. Now they say a variable, a single variable. Well, we know a variable is any letter or symbol that represents a number. So we could say X, obviously, is a term, or Y is a term, or T is a term. Those are all examples of terms. It also says here, numbers and variables multiplied together. So what about 4X? That's a term. It's not 4 and X separate. That's a term, 4X. 4 times some number. We don't know what that number is yet. Or 3Y. That's also a term. And it says numbers and variables multiplied together. We could have more than one variable. I could have 2xy. 2xy is a variable term, but it's not the same as x, and it's not the same as y. So I could not put these guys together. Another example of a term that is not mentioned here is if I have a variable raised to a power. 3x squared cannot be combined with 4x because it doesn't have the same level. This is a squared and this is a single variable. So let's do another one. What if I had 8p q r to the third? That's another example of a term. So let's say, what do they mean by combining like terms, and what steps do I need if I'm going to be solving equations? The first thing I need to do when I'm solving an equation with combining like terms, I have to start by combining the terms. Whoops. C-O-M-B-I-N-E. What am I doing here? C-O-M-B-I-N-E. Combine the like terms. Then the next thing we do is we solve the equation using the steps that we already know. So we first identify the variable, B-A-R-I-A-B-L-E. And then the first step is going to be, because we've already combined the like terms, after we've identified the variable, then we undo adding and subtracting. The next step is we undo multiplying and dividing. I'll give you a second to catch up on that. And that all leads to having the variable. We get the variable alone on one side of the equation. So that's our ultimate goal. I need to have the variable on one side of the equation equal to some number. So let's take a look here. Let's start by combining like terms. We're not solving anything here because do you see any equal signs? These are just expressions. So let's practice combining like terms. If I have 6k and somebody gives me an additional 7k, well, altogether I would have 13k's. So I've combined those terms together. Take a look here. I have 12r minus 8 minus 12 minus 2r. Well, I'm going to start by circling the two R terms. And I have to make sure that I include the operation that's just to the left of the term. And then I'm going to underline these two terms, just so I can tell them apart. I have 12 r's, and I'm going to take away 2 of those r's. So that leaves me with 10 r's. And when I combine -8 and -12, I have -20. I'm done. Don't do anything more. I can't put those together. I cannot put those together. So let's take a look at the next one. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to circle the 2 n terms. And here it just has n. How many n's do I have there? Well, remember, when I have a variable without a number in front of it, which we call the coefficient, I know I have one of them. So I have 1 n, I have 2 n's. I'm going to underline my constant terms, because numbers are called constants if they don't have a variable. And I'm going to put these together. 1n and 9n gives me 10 n's. 10n. And if I combine -10 and -13, all of them are negatives. How many do I have all together? I'm sorry, -10 and -3 gives me a total of 13 negatives. So, how can I put this all together? I'm going to put it all together by practicing how to combine like terms and then solving these equations. It's not very difficult. It's actually pretty easy. So the first thing I'm going to do is I like to draw that line. It represents the equal sign. And on this side of the equal sign, I see I have 2 x terms. So I'm going to put those together. I have 4 x's and I have 10 x's. So together I have 14x, and I only have one constant term, which is 2. And on this side, there's nothing I can do except write equals 30. So now I'm going to follow my steps. I'm going to undo adding or subtracting, and I see this plus 2 here, so I'm going to subtract 2 because I undo them by doing the inverse or the opposite. So that becomes a 0, and 14x plus 0 is 14x. 30 minus 2 is 28. So my last step here to get my variable all by itself is to undo multiplying, because a number right next to a variable means multiply. What is the opposite of multiplying by 14? To divide both sides by 14. And that gives me a really nice number here to divide 28. I know that 14 divided by itself is 1. 1 times x is x. How many 14s go into 28? Well, 2 of them. Let's take a look at this last one. Boy, they have the variable term on the right, but that's okay. It can be on the right or the left. I know we get pretty comfortable putting it on the left all the time, but let's just leave it on that side for right now. Well, I don't see any other variable term, but I do see 2 constant terms. Remember, a constant is a number because 8 is constantly 8. It never changes. -2 is constantly -2. So let's start here. Can't do anything to the left-hand side, but on this side, I can combine 8 and -2. Well, what is 8 minus 2? It's 6. And my variable term is all by itself. I don't have any other variable terms. My next step is going to be to undo adding or subtracting. I want to get rid of this 6 so I can leave this eventually y all by itself. So I'm going to start by doing the opposite of a positive 6, which is a -6, or subtract 6. Because 6 minus 6 is 0, and 0 plus 7y is 7y. That's the identity property of addition. On this side, I have 27 minus 6, which gives me 21. So now my last step here to get this variable all by itself is to get rid of that 7. Well, a number right next to a variable means multiplying, so the opposite or the inverse of multiplying is dividing. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 1 times y is y. That's the identity property of multiplication. And how many 7s are there in 21? Well, there are 3. So we've completed our notes for combining like terms, and we're going to be working on multi-step equations this week and next week, because it's really good information to have as we move into the next grade level. So, your practice for today is going to be to do the 4 problems that are on this page. and then you're going to be submitting that into the quiz online. So if you were not able to print this, you can always open it up and just write those problems down, but you're going to be putting those answers into our quiz. Everybody have a great day.